Hello again, friends. There has been much angst and hate amongst the community. Many rants of "I'm going to quit." For those of you in the loop, you know what's going on. For those of you who might not have heard, the cause of all of this whininess is Starvader Blaster Joker. I'm going to read the effect to you, and I'm anticipating that you wet yourself, flip the nearest table, and say I'm done with the game. You got your table ready? No? I can wait. Alright, you're ready. His skill is Activate, Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 2, lock one of your Starvader rear guards. Then, lock all of your opponent's rear guards, choose one of your opponent's Legion mates, and retire it. His second ability is, when he attacks a Vanguard, if he is in Legion, you can move a copy of himself or his mate from your hand to the Soul, and if you do, he gains 1 critical until the end of that attack. Table flipped? Check. Pants all soggy? Good. I'm about to tell you why this card is good, but not any more game-breaking than any other Legion-era Link Joker boss. The first thing that we need to establish is that there is no fundamental difference between triangle locking an opponent and pentalocking an opponent. Triangle locks stop the Vanguard from being boosted while also preventing either side row from attacking. Pentalocks stop the Vanguard from being boosted while also preventing either side row from attacking. The advantages that Pentalock bring are countable on one hand. The first advantage is that you get 4,000 more power with Neobium and Lanthanum. This is the best overall advantage that pentalocking offers, but it's still not even making up for the fact that you have to lock one of your units to do it. Now, with Mayoron, Blaster Joker's tap, give 10,000 power to himself grade 1 support unit, you're really edging out in power slightly, but not enough for it to really be considered that much stronger than everything else. The second advantage that you get for pentalocking is the negation of activated and automatic abilities that your opponent's rear guards might have. I think that the biggest one would be Owe in Eradicators. His ability to move himself to Soul to force you to retire one of your units is kind of annoying, and if you triangle lock, you don't really get rid of him since he's typically boosting one of the side rows, so Pentalock has an advantage there. The final advantage that I could see would be if you're playing against old school Dragonic Overlord, regular Asuricizer, or Juggernaut Maximum, and they happen to be Vanguard, then they have 9,000 power now, which I guess is a thing. But realistically, triangle locking is as effective as pentalocking for pretty much every situation. With triangle lock being so incredibly easy to accomplish in the Legion era, especially with Photon being a card, I don't foresee this pentalock being any more broken than what Link Joker currently has to offer in terms of locking. So the pentalock, being only marginally more effective than a triangle lock, is being costed at 2 soul, 2 counterblasts, and locking one of your own units. To triangle lock, all you have to do is, for one particular case, Legion, call Photon, and then you triangle lock. So the cost for this is pretty meh, especially with no reliable way to Omega lock once this ability has been activated. But there is one more part to Blaster Joker's skill. He does retire Legion mates. And since there isn't any other card right now that has an effect like this, I'm not really sure what it would be properly costed at. There are only 2 things that I can compare it with right now: Deletion and Mega Colony Vanguard Stand Prevention. On one hand, retiring a mate makes it so that the Vanguard still has power, it potentially still has some effects, but it's not quite all there. The Vanguard itself is missing part of what it needs to thrive, part of what it needs to function. So it's not quite as severe as Delete, which just makes it 0 power, and it's actually more tame than Mega Colony's Vanguard Stand Prevention because you still can stand and attack with an 11,000 power unit that has Twin Drive. So it's taking Legions down to the consistency of Break Ride decks when they fight against Blaster Joker, unless they're satisfied sitting with what is probably going to be an 11,000 power vanilla unit as Vanguard for the rest of the game. The overall worth of forcing your opponent to ride a new Grade 3 to have their Legion effect isn't really that strong either, because a lot of decks are focusing on Legioning multiple times per game to get all of those triggers shuffled back in, so I'm not even sure if it's really forcing you to do anything that you wouldn't want to do already. Well, I'm not completely convinced that being forced to ride a Grade 3 in order to Legion again is that big of a deal. I do think that there's a lot of reasonable counterplay to this card, and that's one of the things that I think is going to keep it fair and keep it balanced. This card, you can play around it by not calling rear guards, you can play around it by not having a Legion mate, so you can either wait on Legioning, or you can play a Break Ride deck and just wait to Legion over your Break Ride on the turn that you're wanting to push for game. Everything else aside, this is a very strong card. It is definitely worthy of being a final boss for a season. It has all of these unique effects to it. Nothing else has locked 5 before this. Nothing else has required a Soul Blast for locking other than Binary Star. And nothing else has been able to destroy Legion Mate. So this card is definitely unique. It still feels like a blaster just because all of these blaster units have had bonus critical. Majesty Lord, Gust Blaster Dragon, Phantom Blaster Dragon, Phantom Blaster Overlord. All of these blaster units have had bonus critical, so I'm glad to see that that was retained. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like this card is as ground-shatteringly broken as everyone is making it out to be. I don't feel like it's going to have as big of an impact as people think it's going to have, and a little bit of playtesting will probably reinforce that for several people. I hope that this made some sense. I hope that this calms down a few people. It probably won't, but at the end of the day, all I can say is keep calm and ride the Vanguard, question mark? Who am I kidding? Panic and ride the Vanguard!